like we're back in the studio. Los Angeles, 1997.
That's a good analogy.
Brett Gurewitz behind the controls. This is Brett.
I don't need to tell the truth, but I never lie. I don't need to bow to you. You're just passing by. I never wanted to be the one you bitch and moan and come home to. But as long as you look good, I'll come back to you. Get inside my troubled mind with all of your threats. Sometimes I think I was blind. Not before we met. I never wanted to be the one that you depend on for your life. When you cry, it smells like soup. Sound like Shona Knife. Never fear, though I said all night. I gotta ride. Each time I said all night. No, I just might. You make me stay all night. It's just that side of you tonight that makes me stay all night. I'm gonna stay all night. You're an evil little girl. I'm a twisted man, tearing through your perfect world. Make you understand. I never wanted to be the one you bitch and moan and come home to. But as long as you look good, I'll come back to you and do the things you do. Stay all night. I gotta ride. Each time I stay all night. No, I just might. You make me stay all night. It's just that side of you tonight that makes me stay all night. I'm gonna stay all. I would never treat you bad. You deserve the best from me. If you want to keep your place, you better get down on yours.
Yeah, Todd wrote this one.
Yeah.
This is not mine.
Stand all night, I gotta ride. Each time I stand all night, no, I just might. You make me stand all night. It's just that side of you tonight that makes me stand all night. I'm gonna stand all night.
Text
R.I.P. Todd.
questions, comments, wagers. Give us a reason. Sleeper fantasy play, your best alternative line, whatever you have. Text the round robin 757-354-5517.
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, take us that star-spangled banner yet wave, for the land of the free and the home of the brave.
This is the Deep End Broadcasting Network.
You are tuned in to the Round Robin with Stephen Murray on Deep End Broadcasting.
Any time I feel the
Here we are, August the 1st, 2023, broadcasting from the Chicks Beach section of Virginia Beach, Virginia, the beautiful coastline of a hot summer here on the East Coast. We haven't been with you guys in any kind of capacity since right there at the end of June when hockey season wrapped up. And here we are. We are back. It is August the 1st. We have NFL football this week. We have training camp in full force. We have NCAA football galore coming up. We are in the heat of the baseball pennant races. We still have some fun NASCAR stuff to go with. English Premier Soccer starts next week. You can look at the ticker below and get an idea of the content coming up. It's all the same shows. The Friday Soccer Paycheck back next Friday. Inquisition Unknown back next Wednesday. And Nephew Dave will be back, of course, with his show, What the Puck is Going On, in September as the NHL season approaches. And here we are. And I guess the thing to do is just kind of catch you up on the state of the show, kind of a little bit of a review of last year. What we probably look forward to this year, as we are now on Tuesdays through Thursdays. We're going to take steps forward on this program. I think last year was more of the trial and error kind of thing. Let's have some fun. Let's see how we can push the boundaries a little bit. And of course, we've had our issues with audio in the past. We've done some nice upgrades here in the off season. So hopefully in season number 2 of everything that we're doing, all that is going to be at a minimum. We did some good things in season 1. We went to Green Bay and did a show. We went to Wrigley Field and did a show. We went to Pittsburgh, did a show. We did a CP Shuckers playoff party on the road with the mobile studio. We've enhanced the mobile studio tremendously for all our efforts that we plan to do moving forward. And as always, this show has been unscripted. There's not been one script of anything since day one. Maybe you jot a couple questions down. I did today for Dave Grande, just to kind of make sure I'm not lost in the flow of some of the things I want to make sure I touch on base with him. Dave Grande back. He's back today. So we will have him on here in another segment or so. Nephew Dave, he will probably be popping into the studio as well. And we have a ton of sports to talk about. We rounded out the season, I think, last year pretty good. The rugby show kind of took a dive there at the end. As many of you guys may know or may remember, or I've touched on, my mother's ailing health was a scenario that the family had to deal with is not the right word, but just handle appropriately over a course of several months and years, really, for that fact. 4.5 years, if you really want to stretch it, from her decline. So there's been a lot of time invested in trying to make sure that the families stays with a level head. Everything's handled appropriately, all the right questions asked to the healthcare providers. And as we got to the end of last season, I think that was definitely starting to take a toll on, maybe a little bit of the quality of the rugby show as we got there towards the end. I think, there's time with the family you have to spend, and you never feel like you're doing enough. That's for sure. And unfortunately, my mother did pass away, just last 2 Thursdays ago. So, we're not even at the 2-week mark yet. We buried her last Tuesday. We've had plans to kind of start the show about 3 weeks ago, but we held off until now. And I think now's a good, decent time to move forward. We always will think about her. and keep her in our thoughts. I visited her the other day. I know she's watching over the family, and there will be some tough moments in that regard. And I think she'd like me to have fun and try to keep things moving with the show. And that's what we're going to do here, and focus on the fun stuff. And we'll get a little bit more travel involved. We're going to have a little bit more freedom on our hands. I had to basically bag a few trips in the past in the spring that we were kind of looking forward to, or things that kind of came on the radar. We were never really able to develop into realistic ideas, just not knowing at any second when you needed to be right here in Virginia Beach. So we'll look forward to some of that here in the fall and as we go down the path of things. So we love you, Mom. Thank you for everything. And, I'll always be by your side because I'll see you all the time. I'm going to come visit you all the time. And I know you're looking down upon us. We have my father as well. He's going to start to tune in. I'm going to get him savvied up. We've already got him a little bit more savvy on technology. So once we get him tuning in, maybe we'll even get his perspective on some Giants stuff here down the road. So that's where we stand with the show. Besides that, swimming pools have dominated the life here. That's part of the Deep End family, is running these swimming pool gamut of lifeguards and whatever else comes down the pipe. We had a couple interesting rehabilitation projects to keep us occupied with our mind, not let it wander down the path of despair and depression. So we're able to focus on work here down the stretch. And, we look forward to the end of summer and football season for sure. We intend to step this forward show in efforts to get rid of all swimming pool activity. That would be a great goal for sure. Somewhat free agents. This network is always for sale. If any of you FanDuel or any of you major sports wagering companies or anyone conglomerates, it could be anyone, ever want to purchase the Deep End Broadcasting Network, then yes, we are always for sale. And, available to do your shows as well on a much smaller scale. I know Nephew Dave would like to get on and talk hockey wherever he can and things like that. So let's have some fun. We'll get to baseball later. That'll be one thing we can look at here as we get click on things. Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, live 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So wherever that is around the world, you figure it out. But if you're on the East Coast, you give yourself a little bit of drive time stuff. And here's the deal, too. I want to mention this, and this has always been kind of a purpose of the show, is I kind of get sick of, I love to listen to sports radio myself. By the time I get to the afternoon, early afternoon, very early afternoon, not even the later afternoon, I kind of get sick of talking about what happened in the past, to be honest. I want to know what's happening in the future. And that's going to be somewhat the focus of what we have going on here on the programming on Deep Endable Solutions, Deep End 757, the Deep End Broadcasting Network. Yes. So we focus on stuff moving forward, looking forward, stuff in the present, like the games tonight in baseball, like future odds and stuff like that. No one cares about news that happened. You've already had your fill by the time we get on the air. And, there's things we'll touch on once in a while, of course. But, I can't break down what happened in the British Open 2 weeks ago and stuff like that. We'll always look for the next golf tournament we can find some value on or whatever. There's any kind of numbers we can even any number of angles we can kind of take right now that aren't even gambling. We have fantasy. There's all kinds of stuff happening in training camp with the NFL. So we can focus on all this stuff, try to figure out some good angles as we approach NFL games, college games as well. Definitely going to deep dive here into college. We'll get into some of that this week. Probably not today, but we'll get some college maybe tomorrow or Thursday. Thursday would be a great college day, I think. And that'll be the plan. All right. So we look forward. We'll talk about the stuff happening in the future and the immediate present. And with a little bit of an eye on the past, we won't dwell on that too much. And I think that's a very good plan moving forward. All right. So that being said, maybe we should just go ahead and get Dave Grande on here in a few minutes. It's 4:12. I don't know. I'll go ahead and talk about the state of sports, the way I see things, maybe. Of course, unscripted. I'm going to fly off the seat here. We'll take a break. Need to incorporate the commercials a little bit back in because we need to make some money. Anyone out there interested in advertising for sure, then I would like you to email us at deep, DEEP, end, END, like deep end of a pool. The email again, deepend757 at yahoo.com. I'm going to have sponsored packages available. And honestly, you're looking for a Thursday night NFL on location spot. I'd like to do the show live on Thursdays, 4 to 6 from wherever we can at a bar or any kind of establishment here in the local 757 area. Would be fun. We'll try to bring them a little bit of crowd and maybe we can have some fun in that regard. We'll see if that can happen. That will be a good goal of mine. See if I can kind of seal somewhat of a deal. Of course, we'll have travel weekends as well. So, if we get a dozen games on location somewhere or even 10 games, then I think that's a great little dealio for an establishment to get your name broadcasted on. So we look to have the show on iTunes as well, Spotify, and available where you get all your podcasts, besides the website, which of course has all the content. Again, deepend757.com. I should go ahead and put that on the banner real quick. Let's see. Can I get it up real quick? Oh, yeah, we can. Deepend757.com as I double as producer and talent for the second season as well. Okay, let's start with the sports. We'll get into the football first, NFL. So we left with the Kansas City Chiefs beating the Eagles in the Super Bowl. And how will those teams do moving forward? It looks like pretty good. The Eagles are stacked on defense. The Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, as long as you have him, then you're going to be in it at the end. You have to figure. And, of course, Kelsey's there as well. Besides that, I think the consensus story for me is just the fact that there are definitely a lot of quarterbacks out there who are going to have to prove themselves. We can start on the depth charts anywhere you want, to be honest. But, we have a question at quarterback in Washington in that division. Okay. We have a question at quarterback in Green Bay. Are there really any other questions answered with Chicago, Detroit, or Minnesota? I mean, Detroit played well last year, but can they take the next step this year? Kirk Cousins always seems to take a step back rather than a step forward, sometimes 2 steps back, 1 step forward. You have unknown quarterbacks in Atlanta, Carolina, the Saints, and Tampa. That whole division, the NFC South, is one big unknown at quarterback. How is Kyler Murray going to develop after his injury in the West there? Same with Matthew Stafford. You have 3 different quarterbacks who could make an argument at some point maybe that they're the starter in San Francisco. I mean, you're one Geno Smith regression away or injury from Drew Lock in Seattle. You have Herbert. He signed to the big deal. The Raiders taking a roll of the dice with Garoppolo. The Kansas City Chiefs, like we talked about with Pat Mahomes. And how about this? We'll have Nick Athon on tomorrow. If you remember the old War Paint Illustrated days, if you're a long-time subscriber, viewer, listener to any of the stuff I did way back in the day, I was the Denver Broncos and then later the AFC West beat reporter for Warpaint Illustrated, a Kansas City Chiefs devoted website and magazine. Of course, magazines are dead now, but the Chiefs Blitz is now run by Nick Athen, who is my old boss for the old Warpaint Illustrated. And I've reconnected with Nick. He's going to put our content across his sites as well. So Nick will join us tomorrow, and we'll talk some Chiefs and AFC West football stuff with him tomorrow afternoon. So that'll be good to get Nick back live on the air. All right, back to the quarterbacks. Tennessee, I mean, you have Tannehill. Is that really known? And then if you look back behind Tannehill, you have Will Levis. You have Malik Willis. Okay, so what can you get out of all of that stuff? You have a good quarterback in Jacksonville. You have Minshew number 2 and Anthony Richardson right now listed as number 1 on the depth chart in Indianapolis. It looks like C.J. Stroud is going to be the man for Houston, although Davis Mills might maybe have something to say about that. I doubt it. Case Keenum, number 3. They actually might not have that bad of a quarterback situation in Houston when you think about it that way. Kenny Pickett, he should be fine in Pittsburgh. Trubisky is his backup still. Mason Rudolph, he's still around for the Steelers. You have Deshaun Watson here for the Browns. Joshua Dobbs, the backup, the draft pick out of Tennessee. All right, and Dorian Thompson Robinson, DTR from UCLA. Still Kellen Mond, he won't make the team. But DTR has a good shot too from UCLA. He could even be a slash type of guy, maybe. But Dobbs, Deshaun Watson, that good quarterback youth potential there for Cleveland if Watson has an issue. Bengals, Joe Burrow already hurt. Okay, so he's going to miss some time. So what we have with Burrow is Trevor Siemian, Jake Browning. So that's going to be an interesting look on the Bengals as we move down the road here. And then the Ravens, Lamar Jackson coming out throwing the ball, apparently. Tyler Huntley still is his backup. Josh Johnson there. So they still have a little bit of continuity. Of course, Aaron Rodgers is with the Jets. So Rodgers coming over from Green Bay. Zach Wilson still listed as number 2. He is still on the team. It is Mac Jones and Zappe in New England. Trace McSorley finds his way from Arizona as a free agent now to the number 3 on New England. We have Tua as the starting quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa for the Dolphins. And then behind him, Mike White, Skylar Thompson. Mike White coming from the Jets. And then Josh Allen still quarterbacking for the Bills. Kyle Allen from Houston. Matt Barkley behind him. Kyle Allen drafted there. So the quarterbacks, you have a lot of question marks for sure. And that's going to be a big unknown as far as points go early in the season. I think points could be at a kind of a premium where we like to try to, in the past, we like to find the overs. Everyone likes to bet the over. I would be very wary with some of these very questionable quarterbacks being able to score right off the bat. It is NFL defenses. I think you're going to actually have a good opportunity for some lower scoring games early so these teams can get their feet wet. I mean, we're talking about the New Orleans of the world. We're talking about Tampa Bay. Carolina, if the rookie can go ahead and have an effect there. Bryce Young, that is. Andy Dalton, number 2, by the way, there in Carolina. So points, I think, are something we need to be aware of in September. Planting the seed now, 1 month away. You might get these matchups here in week 1 where you have bad quarterback against bad quarterback. Might as well just look over to week 1 games. And, we don't want to pick games yet because we want to see how injuries go. We're going to talk more fantasy and potential future angles. We will save all our, division picks, conference picks. We'll save all that for the end of August, right before the season starts, after the last preseason game, knowing that, Team X will be healthy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so you have 2 proven quarterbacks, Lions and Chiefs, week 1, September 7th. September 10th, you have mediocre versus unknown quarterback with Titans and Saints. You have unknown quarterback against an established veteran, Buccaneers and Vikings. Cardinals will be an unknown deal. That could be the Colt McCoy revenge game, to be honest, because he was once on the Commanders, who may change their name. That sale official as well, Daniel Snyder, handing it over to the Magic Johnson group. But the Commanders, unknown quarterbacks, I could see that as an under game. Niners, kind of unknown right now against Pickett, but the Niners do have offense. That's just a slugfest game in period. But Bengals, unknown really, with Burrow's status at the Browns. I don't even know if you can trust right now Deshaun Watson. So maybe, good Bengals defense, that could definitely be an under. Panthers and Falcons, where that was a high-scoring game last year. One of the games of the year. The DJ Moore helmet game, if you remember that. The Falcons, unknown quarterback, commodity for the most part against unknown with the Panthers. CJ Stroud is going to have his hands full with the Ravens defense at Lamar. Now, Lamar knew in the system as well for what he has. So will that system be clicking? Texans could actually be okay on defense. So maybe an under there. Unknown quarterback situation in Jacksonville against the Colts. I love Jacksonville week 1. I will say that right now. Jacksonville could put one on the Colts for sure. Unknown quarterback for the Colts. Packers, unknown quarterback against Bears. Still kind of an unknown commodity in Justin Fields. Is he a one-trick pony with the run? Maybe. So you could look at an under there. Eagles, known quarterback and good team against, Mac Jones in his 3rd year. You hope he takes a better step forward than what he did last year. I don't even think he took a step forward last year. I think he took a sideways step. Terrible decision-making at times. And the Eagles defense won't make that easy. That could be an over game, though, maybe. Rams, Seahawks. If Stafford's a go, then you have 2 known quarterbacks. Maybe that's a higher scoring game week 1. Dolphins, Chargers, same boat there. Raiders, Broncos. I kind of like the Broncos. The Raiders, we'll get into more of that as the preseason goes. But, Jimmy Garoppolo, not much depth on offense. Reportedly one of the worst linebacking and secondary units in the league. So the Raiders are ripe for the picking potentially to be an under team themselves. Cowboys, Giants are a good quarterback matchup. Bills, Jets should be a good quarterback matchup as well. But is there going to be, I kind of did like the Bills in this game. It seems like Aaron Rodgers is really saying all the right things already about taking a pay cut. Watch an interview with him as well. He looks comfortable. He looks more relaxed than I've seen him for sure. I think he's actually having a good time up there in New York. So can that spill over and translate onto the field? Maybe. But, still trying to get their act together against an established Bills team who knows what they're doing. You kind of favor the Bills in that matchup just for that alone. Much better game maybe in week 5 than week 1. But man, maybe the Jets come out blazing. Maybe Rodgers does carry that much weight and effect on his teammates to succeed and propel themselves to a win over the Bills there on that Monday night. Okay, so quarterbacks are the big question. We have the running back controversy as well. I'll start, I guess, with Dave Grande on some of the running back stuff. And, there's a lot to get to in that regard. So how about this? We'll go ahead and take a break. We'll get Dave Grande on here. We will talk all kinds of fantasy stuff, some other tidbits as well. He'll come on for about an hour or so. We'll come back and we will hit the baseball slate. Nephew Dave should be popping in the studio as well. And we'll get his take on things, see what he's been up to this summer. So this is the Round Robin. This is the Deep End Broadcasting Network. We are back live on the air from our studios in Virginia Beach, Virginia, here on this Tuesday, August the 1st. Dave Grande with Field Level Media is back. He joins us next. Family-owned and operated, CP Shuckers Cafe and Raw Bar specializes in delicious cuisine, refreshing drinks, and a laid-back atmosphere. We opened our doors in 1995 and have enjoyed being a place to either relax or celebrate ever since. Whether you are in the mood to indulge in a great meal with your friends and family or watch the game, we promise that our inventive menu, attentive service, and skilled bartenders will have you truly satisfied. Both of our locations have spacious outdoor patios for enjoying the breeze and catching a little sun. Our friendly staff at CP Shuckers will make your next dining experience a pleasant one by delivering personal care. We are open until 2 a.m. Full menu will be served until 10 p.m. and late night limited menu until 1 a.m. For larger parties, please give the location of choice a call. Pacific Avenue, 757-425-8676 or Shore Drive, 757-412-2929. More information at cpshuckers.com. Thank you for your continued support and have a shucking good time.
Hey, does your home have algae or stains on the siding? Is there grime built up on your deck or brick patio? Coastal Pressure Washing Services has a warranty of professional services. From pressure washing to window cleaning to deck and fence staining, as well as dryer vent cleaning, you got it all. Call Coastal Pressure Washing at area code 757-439-9810 or visit our website at coastalpressurewashing.net. Again, call Coastal Pressure Washing at area code 757-439-9810 or visit our website at coastalpressurewashing.net.
Dependable Solutions can provide all voiceover services for your advanced audio production needs. Think of us as an inexpensive option, no matter what the size of the project is. From one-word cameos to full script productions, contact Dependable Solutions at 757-354-5517. Do you want to advertise with Deep End Broadcasting? Send us an email at deepend757@yahoo.com. That's deepend757@yahoo.com.
This is the Deep End Broadcasting Network.
It is estimated that 23% of car accidents each year involve a cell phone. That's 1.3 million accidents a year. Reaching for your phone, you are 4 times more likely to crash. Dialing on your phone, 2.8 times more likely to crash. And texting on your phone, you are 23 times more likely to crash. Attentive drivers are safe drivers.
Know your gambling limits. Don't ever bet what you can't cover. Wagering on sports is only fun when you do it the right way. Not every bet will win. When you get on a bad run, know it and avoid trouble. Know your gambling limits.
Control your alcohol. Don't fight. Don't drink and drive. Your one punch could kill someone. It happens. If you're behind the wheel, you may think you are fine, but then the other driver is under the influence of texting, and then you are done. Control your alcohol.
This is the Deep End Broadcasting Network.
Welcome back. And with us now, he was with us the entire season, really, last year from the start, week 1 through to Super Bowl. I think we missed 1 week from being sick. But for the most part, Dave Del Grande was there 98% of the time. We had a fun season last year talking about the games. We haven't caught up with him since. Dave is with Field Level Media, covers actually the Denver Nuggets. We'll get into that in a second. Here with the first question, the senior analyst at Stat Factor and the founder of MrFantasy.com. We welcome back. Oh, and he also knows more about California football than anyone else on the planet will as well. We welcome back Dave Del Grande. Dave, how's it going, man? What are you up to?
You had to add that last part. I mean, is California, if you're, when I think of California football, I'm thinking of University of California football, and that's certainly not something we want to talk about.
Yeah, I think their over-under, is something like 2.5 or 3 wins on the season when I looked at it the other day. Man, we have a lot to get to. We'll get to, obviously, the games as we get closer to the season. We got a couple weeks here till we can really talk about that kind of thing. Of course, injury is going to play out. I think the big lesson we all learned last year is you just kind of never know what you got. We have lots of here in the first month of the games. We got a lot of new quarterbacks, young quarterbacks, or backup quarterbacks, new coaches. So we'll see how things get through training camp. We'll give injuries a chance to play themselves, which they played a major factor kind of already for the most part. But there's some other stuff with the NFL we'll get to, especially with fantasy and the drafts coming up for everyone as well. So we'll make that a focus here in the next few weeks. But, Dave, it's been a long time since the Super Bowl. I think we had a pretty good March Madness. It's that one part of the season you're kind of sad to see football go, but you get a variety of other sports you can kind of sit back and watch. Masters, you go through the gamut of the NHL playoffs, which were fun. The NBA was cool to see Jokic win. You got baseball happening and everything. But how about that? Go ahead and catch me up on your sports spring. What were you into the most? What did you think about Jokic? And anything you want to vent about that might be lying on the table for anything you've seen here in the last few months? Go ahead.
Well, like you said, the great thing about the NFL offseason is there is no offseason. I mean, the NFL manages to stay in the news, whether it's the draft or free agency or like you said, the number of new coaches, the Aaron Rodgers thing, was that ever going to end? I mean, it's while all these other things kind of come in, and like you said, I'm a big sports fan, so I love golf's majors. Of course, I'm a big NBA guy, so I follow the NBA very closely during their season. The playoffs were, I thought were entertaining. And then the Women's World Cup, you throw in a little baseball. I mean, there's just enough going on. You throw in, even if you're an NFL fan, there's these marquee events that, I'm not really into golf, but it's kind of fun to watch the British Open, just, and think about, wow, I wish I could go there and play someday, kind of a bucket list thing.
Right.
So it seems like the NFL season just ended, and in some ways, it, like I said, it never ends. They're going to OTAs this week. Oh, they've got a free agent deadline. Oh, it's just the draft. There's always something. And then if we don't have, what was it? Basically February 1st when the Super Bowl was. That wasn't that long ago. I remember Brock Purdy, the 49ers quarterback, injuring his arm in the playoff game against the Eagles. And, it's going to be 6 months, recovery minimum. That seemed like yesterday. And he's already back. And so I don't know, the football, and rightfully so. I mean, everybody loves football. Everybody loves fantasy football. And so that season never ends, but it is nice to mix in some of that other stuff.
All right, and let's get to the football. And there's a million different directions I could really, really go here. I'll stick with the one obvious one right now. And just as a conglomerate, it's the running backs, and we'll kind of transition and parlay this into my fantasy question here and kind of, my early season thoughts, really. But here you are, you have running backs versus owners. It's almost like the evil empire against the rebels, if you're a Star Wars fan from back in the day or something like that. Dalvin Cook's still on the free agent market. Jonathan Taylor, we won't see anything from him until the regular season, I'm sure, with his drama up there in Indianapolis. Running back, a position that has been devalued, but not in fantasy. I mean, that's still valued high in the fantasy game that we like. And in a way, Dave, with all these young quarterbacks that we kind of mentioned, I mean, you can go down the list of all the quarterbacks, and wow, here we go, Desmond Ridder again. Stuff like that. CJ Stroud's going to be out there. Of course, rookie of Carolina as well. So a lot of unknown, and maybe a lot of running back dependent quarterbacks, maybe making a little bit more value on the running backs, actually as maybe a prop goes or in fantasy as well. But go ahead and give me your thought on the whole running back situation now and how that translates into fantasy.
Well, what's interesting is that fantasy has been ahead of the game here. I mean, it used to be in fantasy, let's say 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, where there was this monster run on running backs. If you didn't draft a running back in the first round, you were crazy. People looked at you and said, excuse me, but you realize right. Running backs dominate our fantasy game, right? And then oh man, but I really wanted, the Dan Marino or the top quarterback of, Peyton Manning. And you can't win that way. You got to win. You got to have your running back. But as the last 15 years, you've seen a steady move away from running backs and more toward wide receivers, to the point this year where it's very possible in fantasy there's only going to be 2 running backs taken in the first 10, maybe 15 picks. And there's going to be, instead of there being that run on running back, it's going to be one run on wide receivers. And that is also, that comes from the college game as well. I mean, think about college football over the years, the wishbone and the big power running backs. And now it's all spread offenses and, teams scoring 50 points in the championship game. And so, like I said, fantasy has basically told us over the last 5-6 years, these running backs aren't worth nearly what they used to be before. And coincidentally, not coincidentally, however you want to put it, these running backs are trying to get the same money that they got 6-8 years ago. And they're being told, nah, you know what? We need to save the money for wide receivers these days.
How do you think this Jonathan Taylor thing may play out? Where may Dalvin Cook end up?
Well, that's, all good questions. And there's way more going on than that. I mean, the running back situation league-wide is a mess.
Right.
And this is why I said, Christian McCaffrey is established, and Austin Eckler, now that he got his contract, they're established. They're, the top 2 running backs in fantasy. Heck, they could be the top 2 picks of the fantasy draft. They're so much better than any other back. you want to tell me who's the third best back this year? I mean, I guess, Travis Henry, we would still be kind of up there. But he disappointed last year. That team doesn't look like it's going to be any good. They're talking about throwing more, which every team's talking about throwing more. And that's a problem with running backs. If you think of McCaffrey and you think of Eckler, these guys are better pass receivers than they are running backs. They're not the type of guy, well, let's plow it up the middle with, McCaffrey. Let's hand the ball to Eckler 22 times. No, these are guys, if we get 10 carries from these guys, that's great, because we're also going to catch 6 or 8 passes and get almost as much yardage through the air as they're getting on the ground. So, so all of a sudden, it's like, Saquon Barkley used to be really good. He's kind of gotten the message that maybe you're not as good as you used to be. I mean, obviously, Ezekiel Elliott, was a star not that long ago. He can't even find a job. And there's, the Eagles, the champion, this great Eagles team, they told their star running back that basically to take a hike. We don't need you anymore. We're gonna plug a new guy in there, or a couple of new guys in there. Kansas City's kind of done that for in the entire Mahomes era. It's like, well, who's Kansas City's running back? Well, one year it's going to be Allaire, and another year it's going to be Pacheco, and then McKinnon is their top guy, and I mean they've kind of been the front runner in hey, look, we've got the best offense in the NFL, and we play rotating running backs, and so that's the way the game is played these days on the field. And like I said, in fantasy, there are probably 4 or 5 of the best offensive teams in football. I mean, good teams, right? And it used to be, give me the star running back on a good team, and he's worth his weight in gold, because good teams get the lead, good teams run the ball. Good teams if they have a dependable back, he's going to be a high scoring guy. But you look at, like I said, the Chiefs and the Eagles, arguably the 2 best teams in football, certainly 2 of the better offensive teams. It's totally unclear how their backfield situation is going to work out. The Jets, they're trying to sign Cook, perhaps. They already got a good running back. The Vikings, one of the highest scoring teams in the league. Well, they don't want Dalvin Cook anymore. They think Madison might be this guy, that they could plug in there. The Dolphins are a team. Who's their running back? The Lions, another up and coming offensive team. There's just so many uncertainties at the running back position this year that, which we talked about. I feel comfortable in the fantasy draft not drafting a running back early on, and just kind of rolling the dice with, well, the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Vikings, these kinds, they're going to be top 5 offenses, and top 5 offenses are going to have a good running back. We just don't know who that's going to be yet, and because of that, you're going to get good value with some of these guys in the draft. Now, it's, coming into the season, it's going to be a guessing game, who these guys are going to be. Week 1 of the NFL season, we learn a whole lot more than we learned in the entire preseason, because the coaches finally identify, what their offenses are going to be like. But, I just think that in terms of a draft strategy, I think you're crazy to draft a running back other than McCaffrey or Eckler, basically anywhere in the first 3 rounds, and maybe even the first 4 rounds, because there's just, I don't want, the 3rd or 4th or 5th best running back. He's just not going to be better. He might be worse than A guy right now, who ends up being the starting running back. I mean, when the Eagles sort out, what they're doing, give me that guy who I drafted in the 10th round rather than running out there and drafting Travis Henry in the 2nd round.
Teams that will be somewhat dependent or forced to be dependent on a running back, at what point of the draft would you start to look for someone like a Khalil Herbert, maybe, because he's probably going to get the ball a lot for Chicago, and he'll probably slide down more. Maybe even someone like in Tampa Bay, I could see a scenario where number 1 on the depth chart there, you have Rachaad White. Maybe he's a buy, low value. You can get it at steal at a certain point. When are you going to try to maybe look for someone like that who can get a lot of carries to maximize their value?
Well, my general, philosophy on drafting running backs is avoid running backs on bad teams. Like I said, you could be a great running back, but if your team is behind 17-7 at halftime every week, you're just not going to get the ball that much in the second half unless you're a pass catcher. And so, I'll stay away from probably the bottom 10 teams. I'm not forget who their running backs are. I'm just going to stay away from the running backs on these bottom 10 teams just because I've just seen this play out so often. Now, last year Atlanta was an exception to that rule. They were a bad team and they ran the ball all the time. But what did they do in the off season? They made some changes. They're planning on throwing the ball more this year, and obviously they drafted a star running back, real early in the draft. It's going to be interesting to see how he plays out. But again, part of his intrigue is he's a good pass catcher. We're talking about Bijan Robinson, of course.
Right.
So I mean, my general feeling. My general draft philosophy is where there is not quality, draft quantity. And so I think that a good idea in the draft is, the wide receivers this year are so good that I think you've got to draft 3 wide receivers, planning to play one of them at flex, either in the first 3 rounds or in 3 of the first 4 rounds. And the good thing about that is once you get 3 good wide receivers, you don't need to draft another one for, 6 rounds, 7 rounds, whatever. And so you can, at that point, go about getting your quarterback. But most important, in about the 5th round, or maybe even I'd say 5th round is probably about as late as you can wait. If you take running backs in the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th rounds or 9th round, 3 or 4 running backs within that period of time, you're going to miss on some. I mean, obviously these are not, sure thing guys, but you only need to hit on 2 of them. And if you take 2 running backs in that group, the chances of hitting on them both is very slim. If you take 3, obviously that increases your chances. If you take 4, if you take 5, if your picks from round 5 to round 10 include 5 running backs, well, why would I do that? I'm only playing 2 at a time. Well, because when you draft running backs in that general period, you're going to get as many misses as you get hits. And right now we're just throwing darts, and like you said, the Chicago, Chicago is one of these teams where I think Chicago is going to be a bad team. I really have no interest in the, Chicago running backs, in part because, they have Foreman now, along with Herbert, and they got a quarterback who runs a lot. And that's another aspect of this, is that teams with running quarterbacks, steal touchdowns, steal yards from the running back. It's almost, and these guys, these running quarterbacks, in general, this is a stereotype, but in general, they don't throw the ball to the back. They scramble, and instead of looking for the check down that, Aaron Rodgers and Brady have done so well over the years, they don't look to swing it out to the back. They think, well, why would I throw it out there to that guy who's going to gain 6 yards? I'll just plow it up the middle myself, gain 10, and we'll move the chain. And so that is something, you talked about the Colts, and what's Taylor's status going to be this year? Who knows if he's even going to play for the Colts? But one of the problems he's going to have, even if he does come back, is he's now got a quarterback there who's going to run the ball probably as much as any running back. And when that's the case, it's just, and this is a bad team, mind you, it's going to be almost impossible for a running back on that team to have success. So that, that's my long-winded answer to your question would be, if you're really, for example, I hope in my draft this year, I hope I get Kelsey in the first round. Okay. Then I plan to draft 3 wide receivers in the second, third, and fourth round. And if you look at the depth of the wide receivers available, you're going to get 3 really good ones if you draft 3 of them within the first 4 rounds. And if my team at that point after 4 rounds has 3 good wide receivers and has the best tight end, then I don't need to worry about those positions, maybe even ever again. And until maybe the very end, well, I'll draft some sleepers. And at that point, it becomes, okay, well, I got to pick a time where I'm going to take a quarterback, and I'm in no hurry there. We can talk about quarterbacks if you want, but I think there's good value down in the draft at quarterback this year. So I'm in no hurry to draft. If I'm the 10th guy in my league who drafts a quarterback, and I end up with Aaron Rodgers or Jared Goff, or even Smith from the Seahawks, who I think is a nice, going to have a nice season this year. I think those guys can be very effective. No, they're not going to score as many points as Mahomes and as Hurts and Burrow and these guys, but they'll keep you competitive. And in the meantime, this isn't the strength of my team anyway. The strength of my team is I've got these 3 great wide receivers to go with the best tight end. But anyway, so my point there is once I have Kelsey and these 3 wide receivers, and we're 4 rounds in, well, now we're talking rounds 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those 6 rounds, I'm going to draft a quarterback, and I'm going to draft 5 running backs. And I'm just going to throw darts at situations that I think are good. And like I said, you hit one of them out of 5, which you should be able to do. Now you've got one good running back and the great wide receivers and a decent quarterback and the best tight end. That's a good team, right? You hit 2 out of 5, which is certainly feasible. Now you've got a really good team. And I just think that that's the best way to approach this year's draft is get your wide receivers early. And this is no real secret. If you look at the average draft positions on some of these early drafts, you see that you've got 8, what I would consider 8 elite wide receivers, and they're going in the top, certainly in the top 15 picks. So, you can't wait 2 or 3 rounds in and say, okay, I'm going to start drafting wide receivers and get real good ones. You run into the same problem then as you run a running back is, now I'm throwing darts at wide receivers, and that's bad because this is the most important position in fantasy now. You have to be good at wideout. You need at least 2 of these guys. And so to wait down in the draft, I think is crazy. Now, that said, I do think there are some sleepers, among the wide receivers who you can wait 10 rounds, 12 rounds, and possibly,
Yep.
Still get. And because you've already got 3 good ones, if the guy completely flames out, nothing ventured, nothing gained. I mean, a big deal. I don't need him anyway. So that's my general thinking about the running backs this year is, it's a mystery. I mean, heck, there are teams out there that have no idea at this point who their running backs are going to be, how much they're going to play. And we haven't even started factoring in injuries that may or may not occur during training camp. So if they don't know what's going on, well, then we certainly can't know what's going on.
Okay. You said you're going to make this easy for me. You like Kelsey, hopefully to get in the first round, but let's just say that you had the number 1 overall pick. Is Kelsey your guy still then?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I would say no. I mean, I hope that, and most of these leagues, right, the draft order is random, and so you roll the dice there, right?
Yep.
If I were drafting today, which would be a terrible idea, by the way, but if I were drafting today and I had the first or second pick, I would take McCaffrey or Eckler. I just think they're so much better than any of the other running backs. They are the 2 sure things, in my opinion, among the running backs. What that in turn does is it means I don't get Kelsey. Okay. But I can then turn around still in rounds 2, 3, and 4 and draft my 3 wide receivers and be in the same position I was earlier, except for now I need 1 less running back down the line and I'm going to need a tight end. I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope that I end up, I'd love to draft. Ideally, my dream position would be the last possible spot where that you could comfortably think you're going to get Kelsey. And that might be number 5.
Right. Yeah,
I think if you're below number 5, even number 6, because you look at, I think McCaffrey and Eckler are going in the top 5, and I'm almost sure that Jefferson is going in the top 5.
Jefferson and Tyreek Hill's probably up there, right?
Well, and
Maybe.
Chase, I think Chase is probably more highly regarded than Tyreek, although I think Tyreek's better. But those are the 5 we're talking about. That I can see those guys going 1 to 5. But then, while there are still great receivers available, first off, you wouldn't take a quarterback at that point. You wouldn't take any of the running backs at that point. So it's going to be who's the next best wide receiver. And like I said before, I think there are 5 guys who are very similar and not that far removed from the first 3 guys. That list would be, Brown, of the Eagles. Cooper Kupp, is another guy who I think could slip a little bit.
Right.
Because of
he still have a big season. Yep.
Yeah. He's certainly someone who, you should consider in the first round. I think that Devontae Adams is another guy who's a first round, maybe early second. I think Diggs from Buffalo, same way, very similar receivers. And I think Lamb, again, is a guy who I drafted last year in the middle of the second round, who slipped to me to that point. I'm not sure he's getting that far this year. But that would be nice if he did. So I think those 8 guys, Jefferson, Hill, Chase, Kupp, Brown, Adams, Diggs, and Lamb, are all number 1 fantasy receivers. And I think that they will all go, before the middle of the second round. How many of them will be taken ahead of Kelsey? Well, who knows? It just depends on what league you're in. But like I said, I don't think Kelsey's going to go in the top 3. of any league. But once you get past those two running backs and Jefferson, then it's possible. I'm going to hate drafting 5th and the guy before me takes Kelsey. That's going to ruin my day. Because now my whole strategy of drafting Kelsey first or drafting one of these top 2 running backs first, those are both out the window. And I'm going to say, you know what, guys, I'm quitting your league before I even make my first pick. Well, not really, but that's what I will feel like at that point, because all this thought about, okay, I'm going to, my team's either going to have Kelsey or it's going to have one of these top 2 backs. And then I'm going to make this big run on wide receivers. So I hope to pick 5th. I'll take 6th, and cross my fingers. I'll take 4th and feel even better about it. But obviously, the higher you draft, the less likely any of these top 8 receivers are going to get to you in the second round. And if you could get Kelsey and one of those 8 guys, which I think you could if you drafted 6th. I don't think you'll get them if you drafted 4th. But man, that's the start of a championship team there. Give me Lamb on top of Kelsey.
Right.
And then, like I said, you look at the next group of wide receivers that are going to be available at the end of the second round into the third round. Man, this is
let's kind of play that game. I know everyone likes those radio games or whatever people play. So if you had someone like Garrett Wilson for the Jets, where would you be?
Absolutely.
Where would you be excited to get him if he was available? What round?
Yes. Well, I think to me the second group of receivers, the idea, if this guy's your second best receiver, you've got a good team. That group, I think St. Brown would probably be the headliner of that group. And Wilson for sure, Devontae Smith, who, came on very strong last year. And I think he definitely belongs in that second group. Waddle, I think, had, another guy in a team that's going to throw the ball a lot, electric wide receiver.
How about Amari Cooper? Let me throw some names at you.
I'd say, let me put it this way. I'd put Keenan Allen, in that second group. I'd put Ridley, Metcalf, and maybe even Higgins, in that next 8.
Okay.
I think those would be my 8 guys. St. Brown, Wilson, Smith, Waddle, Allen, Metcalf, Ridley, and Higgins.
Deebo Samuel.
Well, that, it's funny, and I'll be the first to tell you that don't trust anything you hear in preseason.
Right.
Everybody looks great. And you know what? No, not everybody's great. We've learned this lesson before. But the word, I can't tell you the number of times. Now, granted, most of the spotlight on 49ers practices has been about their quarterbacks. How's Darnold looking? How's Purdy coming back? How's Lance doing? And as part of those reports, I can't tell you the number of times I read, and oh my God, you should see Ayuk, how good he's catching the ball and how he's really learned the offense. He's become their number 1 wide receiver, and he gets deep, and he's doing everything right. And it's like, gee, I thought, Samuel is this guy who's, certainly outperformed him so far. And where Samuel gets a big boost is, they'll put him in the backfield sometimes.
Right, he'll get some chances to run the ball.
You'll get some cheap running, run. But
he could throw the ball.
I think Ayuk will. The way that I'm reading the 49ers passing game this year is I think Ayuk's going to have a better season than Samuel.
Okay, nice. Yeah, he had a good season last year, Brandon Ayuk did. Yep.
Yeah.
He scored a lot. He scored a lot.
And it sounds like, I mean, again, from every report that I've read, that it sounds like he's better than he's ever been. Now, like I said, I've read that story 100 times. Everybody's got 15 guys on the roster first week of training camp who, you should see this guy. He looks great. Okay. I'm not buying any of it. But it's just because of the circumstances, basically through the entire offseason, the OTAs, and then the other drills that they had during the offseason. It's just because all the focus is on the quarterbacks. Well, it's made you notice who's catching the ball, and it's like, wow, Ayuk, another good catch. Wow, do you see that catch? Who's that? Oh, that's Ayuk. Oh man, he missed that guy. He was open by 10 yards behind the defense. Wow, that guy's fast. Who's that guy? Oh, that's Ayuk. It's just he's just done so many good things that at this point I'm considering him the 49ers' best wideout. And he's certainly not rated that way in fantasy. So he's a guy who I wouldn't put in this second group of wide receivers, but I would certainly consider him. Once you get to the fourth round, if you're looking for a third wideout, and at least 20 of them are gone. 22 wide receivers are gone. Slim pickings. Absolutely not. There's a great depth of wide receivers. You get into that third group, you've already drafted, Lamb as one of your wide receivers. You got Garrett Wilson. He's your second receiver. And now all of a sudden you throw on top of that, Cooper or Olave or Watson of Green Bay or Mike Williams of the Chargers. There's just, Deontay Johnson, Ayuk. I mean, there's just so many of these guys.
Right.
That,
yep.
Wow, this is my
George Pickens, even maybe
third wide receiver. Oh man, I pity my competition. So it's and then we, another good thing that we haven't really talked about here is not only has college football produced star wide receivers, but they've produced number 2s and number 3s. I mean, there's so many good young wide receivers who are just waiting for an opportunity, that if they get that opportunity, and now all of a sudden, these guys should be ready to move right in. And so I think there are wide receivers that are going to be available very, very late in the draft, who, again, you don't really need one because you've already got 3, but this guy could really be, a star for you down the line. And I'll give you, the guy who one guy who I'm thinking about, and would be no surprise if you heard me last year. Remember how much I raved about this guy last year. He didn't do anything. And he's already gotten himself in trouble this year. But this helps. This helps his value. I mean, he's going to be available in the 12th, 13th round, and that's Jameson Williams.
Right.
Jameson Williams is, the Lions have raved about him in practice. I mean, he's coming back from a serious injury, didn't play much last year. He finally comes back and is ready to play. They don't use him much. That's fine. Last year was kind of a redshirt year for him. But there's a lot of talk of Lions practice. Oh my God, we can't wait to get this guy on the field. He's incredible. And now this was going to be his year. Of course, he's suspended 6 games for gambling exploits.
Right.
But again, my history in fantasy tells me when a guy's injured on our fantasy draft day, or in this case, a guy's suspended, it's an out of sight, out of mind thing for almost everybody in your league. They will not draft these guys. And you got a guy who's, he's injured, he's out. An example would be the Colts running back who just broke his arm yesterday, 2 days ago. Zach Moss. There we go. Zach Moss is, he won't play in the opener, because he's still recovering from his broken arm. Zach Moss that just, goes from a guy who would be taken in about the 7th round to a guy who might not even be drafted in fantasy. And for what reason? Because he's going to miss the first game, maybe the first 2. I mean, if Taylor doesn't return to that team, you have a guy here, an established back who could be, again, these are the Eagles coaches now who are, running this offense here. So he could be, the type of back that the Eagles, produced last year. And, with a running quarterback, but a guy who benefited, from having that kind of guy, I'm talking about the Sanders, Miles Sanders, quietly had a really good fantasy year last year. And why? Well, because you had to, every down the defense, one of the defensive linebackers pointing at Jalen Hurts and saying, okay, I'm shadowing him, well, great. I love running our offense against 10 defenders, and so many times, especially late in the season when they got all their ducks in a row in their running game, you saw Sanders have a lot of really good games. And, I think Moss could be that kind of guy, but because he's, broke his arm, scratch him from my draft list. He's going to miss a game or 2, whatever. He's the kind of guy that you're going to get later on in the draft. And anyway, my point being about Jameson Williams. If Jameson Williams were healthy and everybody's raving about him in camp, and oh my God, the Lions, they've got the best offense in the league, and nobody's ever going to double team Williams. You got St. Brown on the other side. You've got this new tight end that they got.
You got Marvin Jones Jr.
Exactly.
I mean, he's on the depth chart now.
What a great situation for this guy to come in, and to me, he's so good. He could come in. He really should be eventually as good as these top 8 guys we're talking about. He can be the next Devontae Adams. If he gets his head on straight, and he's missing the first 6 games this year, but it's not because he's injured, right? When in week 7 of the season, he should be ready to be plugged into that lineup. And so it's like, well, he's coming back from ACL, kind of like last year. Last year when Williams is going to play this week. They activated him from the inactive list, whatever that was, week 13. And he came back and he was rusty. He hadn't played in a year and he's coming off a major knee injury. Well, that kind of thing, okay, you want to stay away from guys like that, but that's not the case with this guy. He's now 2 years removed from his knee problems. He's looked great since then. And now he's out for 6 weeks for nothing to do with anything physical. I think he could come in this year on a very high-powered offense and have put up some monster numbers by the second half of the season as you're going for the playoffs. And like I said, I'm getting this guy in the 12th round. And I just saw one of ESPN's drafts with their experts. He wasn't even drafted. It's like you got to be kidding me. Put me in that league. But he's anyway. My point is that among the wide receivers, college football has produced so many wide receivers these days because that's all they do. 90% of the college teams, they just throw the ball 70 times a game. And we're seeing that on the high end. Some of these college stars have become pro stars, and we're seeing that also on the low end where and this will probably be the case with this year's rookie crop, which is probably as good as any rookie crop in terms of total number of really good receivers. But I don't really see any of these guys necessarily going into a situation where, wow, this guy, he's going to go in and be the number one receiver for the Vikings. No. I mean, Addison, was the USC kid, who, everybody thinks is a, real good athlete, be a real good pro. He goes into Minnesota, and at best he's going to be the number two behind, the fantasy's number one wide receiver. I mean, he could have a nice season, but it's if Jefferson ever got hurt, now all of a sudden you're talking about, okay, wow, I'm glad I drafted that guy, because these guys I think are so good, a lot of them, that when they get the opportunity, then I think they're going to be good enough to do well. But you come fantasy draft day, I mean, the Seahawks drafted the kid
Smith
with
and
the
Jigma,
hyphenated name, Najiba or whatever his name is, from Ohio State. Who, I mean, to me, he looks great. Unfortunately, he's on the same team with Lockett.
Right. He might steal something from them, or they're going to take.
Yeah,
from him.
right. Well, but that's the thing. He's, as the third receiver, he's not, not fantasy worthy. He's never going to get into my lineup. But Lockett gets hurt all the time. Metcalf, he seems to be in and out of the lineup despite the fact that he's, this huge guy. And that's what it's going to take. You get a team like that's going to throw the ball a lot. You've got these two great receivers. Now all of a sudden one of them gets injured. Oh, well, now what are we going to do? Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to plug in this Ohio State guy who's just as good as these other two guys, and we're going to keep throwing it. And that's what it's going to take for some of these rookies, especially the wide receivers. Like I said, I don't really see among all the wideouts right now who were drafted, I don't see a single one where I would say this guy's a fantasy starter immediately. Now, will someone develop into that? Probably, but I think most of that's going to come from who gets the opportunity, who gets the break. When Lockett, sprains his ankle in week one, and they have to put the Ohio State guy in there, and now all of a sudden, he becomes this year's Olave, or something like that. Where I didn't think that highly of him at the beginning of the year. Wish we could draft over again because I knew this guy was going to be a full-time starter.
I had him last year. He was great.
Exactly. And as soon as Thomas got injured last year, or came off that he wasn't coming back, and now all of a sudden, okay, this is why we drafted the rookie guy. Let's start throwing the ball more to him. And that was not a good passing team last year, and this guy still had a real nice season. So I think there's, there are at wide receiver especially, there are going to be some really nice sleepers available toward the end. And that's good because it kind of fits the way that I want to draft my team. I want Kelsey. I want 3 wide receivers. I want a run of running backs. Give me 5 or 6 running backs, in the middle of the draft, and I'll mix in a quarterback. And now I'm set at running back. Now I'm set at quarterback. Now I'm set at tight end. I'm going to need a kicker. I'm going to need a defense. But with my 2 other picks, in the 12th and 13th rounds, now I'm going to throw my dart at, the Jameson Williams and some other equivalent. And that's kind of my dream draft is, okay, this is, then it comes down to, obviously you have to make good picks, but it comes down to out of my 5, running backs that I take in the middle, I got to hit on 1 or 2 of them. And then, my team will be pretty good. And then if maybe one of these wide receivers that I throw a dart at the very end ends up being, a real good player, well, that covers me, in case I have an injury, or, equally important, your quarterback gets injured and you didn't draft a backup, and you need to go out there and make a trade for somebody's backup quarterback. It's nice to have this sleeper wide receiver sitting on your bench that you can plug into your lineup so that you can come out and say, okay, I'll give you Ayuk, my third wide out, because I've got Jameson Williams I can plug in there. Now you need to give me, your Derek Carr, or, whoever this backup quarterback that I'm going to plug in out of desperation. So that's kind of the way that that's my plan that I think can be successful this year in the fantasy draft.
Okay, this is going to correlate to fantasy, but I'm also looking at receiving yard future props as well. I think that these three wide receivers, okay, I think for very different circumstances, you can make a case for them to have a great season and actually, I think, lead the league and potentially in yardage. Okay, and I'm going to throw these names at you. You tell me why I'm crazy. You tell me why this is worth a good stab in the dark here. But I'm looking at Calvin Ridley at 40-1. I'm looking at Jerry Jeudy 40-1. And if the chemistry can somehow click right in Baltimore, maybe Odell Beckham Jr. at 150-1 to lead the league in receiving. But fantasy-wise, too, I think big years for all these guys. Agree? Disagree? What do you think?
Well, I think you hit on three really good names there. I'm not sure what Beckham has left. I do think that Baltimore is going to be much more of a passing team this year. I think that Lamar Jackson has been kind of disappointing for different reasons in the last couple of years. I think he's got a chance to bounce back and be a top 5, top 6 kind of quarterback this year. And of course, that includes running. But I do think that that Baltimore, the potential is there for one of the Baltimore's receivers to really click with him. It's as likely as not that guy's going to be Beckham. I'm just not convinced that he has a whole lot left in the tank.
It's a gamble, but a 150-1 worth the $5.
Yes, I know, and there's a reason for that. I mean, you've got to stay on the field if you're going to be the top, yardage guy or top touchdown guy, whatever you want to say it, among wide receivers. Well, you can't play 12 games. You've got to play 16 or 17 games in order to have a chance like that. I don't see him playing that many games. Now, the other two you mentioned, certainly I mentioned Ridley as a guy who's in my second tier of wide receivers. And that's a pretty heady company. I think it's possible people are going to, forget about him in the draft. I mean, again, out of sight, out of mind. Didn't play last year, but not because of an injury. So it's not like he's going to need time to, ease back into the season. No, this guy's at full speed right now. And, he's on a team that has really upgraded their offense. I think the quarterback, I think, Lawrence is vastly underrated. I mean, people thought coming out that he was, as good a quarterback coming out as we've seen in a long time. He certainly hasn't played to that level, but he's growing to that level. And I think this year he could very easily take that next step, not to become the next Mahomes, or Allen, or even Herbert right away, but not far removed from that. So that next year at this time, we're talking about, who you should consider with the first, as your first quarterback pick will be Lawrence. And I think he's ready for that. I think the team is ready to move in that direction. They had decent passing stats last year without great receivers. Now they're bringing this guy who, I think, he's a elite level. and he certainly was, the last full season that he played. And there's no reason for him to think, well, how many games is he going to play? All of them. How many passes is he going to catch? Well, he's going to be up there. He's going to, and he's got he's very similar in my mind to Diggs, to Lamb, to Adams, to these guys. I think he could have a season every bit as good as those guys, and be the kind of guy that you're talking about. So, that to me is far more likely than Beckham. You mentioned Judy. I'm not sure quite know what to think of the Broncos.
It could all break right, but it could all break wrong for sure.
Right,
right.
And it's going to take
You're hoping it breaks right. You hope it breaks.
Because they were so bad offensively last year that if they even get to average offensively, I think that would be a huge, success for the new coach.
He's in a no-lose situation, to be honest.
Offense in order for someone to lead the league in receiving yards. But that said, a week ago they had 4 receivers that they're raving about, and they've since lost 2 of them. Right. So now they're down to Sutton and Judy, splitting up these balls that, a week ago you were talking about, throwing to 4 different guys. So, that's to me, that's a good thing. More balls means more potential yards. And that's, obviously for fantasy, just catching a pass, regardless of how many yards you gain, is a good thing. I mean, look at the Cooper Kupp success in recent years. So I can see Judy. I think he'd have a better chance of leading the league in receptions than he would in yards. But like I said, just because I can't imagine when all is said and done that Denver is going to be even a top 20 passing team this year. It's just, there's just so many question marks about the quarterback. And Wilson was always successful in Seattle because he had this sixth sense of how to escape the pocket and, find his crease because he's 5'3" or whatever he is, and find his passing lane, give his receivers a chance to get downfield, and then throws the ball deep as well as anybody in recent NFL history. But you hem him in. He's older now. Last year he couldn't get away from the rush. Now, maybe that had to do with the fact that the offensive line was worse, but that hadn't really mattered in the past. In the past, bad offensive line just meant he was, he had a different way of escaping. Last year he just couldn't escape, and you keep him in the pocket. He has a hard time seeing receivers. I don't know. I think there's, I'd like to see him do well, but I just can't imagine him being, even an average quarterback these days. And like I said, if the team's not going to be an average passing team, then what are the chances that they're going to have the top guy in yards or receptions? I would say that's unlikely. So to rank your guys in order, I think Ridley would be is a real sneaky pick. I think that the other two, I think the price.
It's the roulette wheel. It's the roulette.
Yeah.
So check this out. The over/under receptions for Judy is 68.5. So that's barely over 4 a game.
Yeah. Now that I like, and like I said, a week ago, if you had asked me this, 68.5, it still sounded low. But then it was like, they're spreading the ball around among these 4 guys, and I can see him catching 2 balls some games. But now they got 2 receivers, and this is not a good team. This is not a team where, they're going to get ahead and they're going to ball control, running the ball. No. It's even getting ahead of anybody, And I think they're going to be behind a lot. I think they're going to throw a lot of short passes. And he's, he's going to be as much of a possession receiver as anything they got. I think that to me sounds way, way better than taking a stab at him, catching 1,200 yards worth of passes.
Back to Ridley and the Jaguars just for a second. If you were going to force me to the betting window to actually take a team week one already, I mean, I'm going to look at a very good Jacksonville team whose stock should be rising for sure over an Indianapolis team will probably be the rookie quarterback there, the new coach as well. But just laying 3.5 early, I mean, that looks way too easy for Jacksonville at home at this point of the stage anyway.
You're right. That number's wrong. I mean, that number, when push comes to shove, it's going to depend. I mean, is Taylor not playing? Is he? What kind of a mess has that created? We just saw them, like I said, they just lost. The number 2 running back, Moss, to a broken arm. He's not going to play the first game. So we're talking about a rookie quarterback who's not a good passer. Who's a guy who's going to be a runner, but without much of a running game behind him. I mean, every time he fakes the handoff, nobody's going to believe it. He's all going to chase after the quarterback. I don't know. That could be a team that really gets off to a slow start. And you're right. I mean, that's a game there where Jacksonville, should be 7.5 minimum. Again, unless everything goes right for them. Taylor's back and he's looking great. They're rejuvenated. Still 3.5 is. If they were at home, it'd be a 3.5-point home underdog to Jacksonville. All right, that kind of makes sense. But no, at Jacksonville, no. I mean, that's got to be 7.5 minimum.
Okay, we'll get you out of here for the week in a second, Dave. I want to go right back to the 49ers one more time because you're from there. We'll talk about the quarterbacks real quick, and that was a big topic last year. And you've always mentioned how you like, if you're going to have the backup quarterback, you might as well be the same style as a starting quarterback. That way you have something to really kind of go to when the starter goes down. But here we are. We do have Purdy as number 1 on the depth chart right now. And then there we are with Trey Lance. Obviously, Lance's style is different from Purdy. Number 2, there you have Darnold at 3. Let's see how Darnold translates to Purdy as the same type of dealio. So that being said, I asked you before last offseason if Trey Lance would be trade bait. I'm imagining that I think he still could be, to be honest. What's this quarterback situation like in San Francisco, and how do you think inevitably is it going to be Purdy? How do you think it plays out? Is Trey Lance even going to be around?
Well, so much. While all eyes are on Purdy, they really should be on Darnold, because Darnold is the key to how this is going to work. I mean, they need to be convinced that he's, a capable NFL quarterback before they do anything. Because Purdy's going to definitely be their number 1 quarterback, but he's coming off a serious injury, to his throwing arm, and it may never affect him all year. It may start hurting him on opening day. I mean, they have to be ready by halftime of game 1 to have their second string quarterback being up to speed and ready to go, perhaps ready to take over for the rest of the season. Now, if that to me could very easily be Darnold, because just like you said, he's very similar stylistically, to Purdy. You plug Darnold in there, you run the exact same plays you ran when Purdy was in there, and you let your, McCaffrey and Ayuk and Kittle and Samuel, you let these guys dictate, how you do. So if Darnold is, and it sounds like he is, everybody's, again, everything's positive in the preseason training camp, so you don't really have a great idea of how it's going. But it sounds like he's fully capable of being that guy, a solid backup in a situation where the starter is, health-wise is shaky. And if that's the case, then there's zero reason for them to have Lance on the roster. The only reason Lance in that case would be on the roster would be because the team doesn't want to embarrass itself by trading him, for 5 cents on the dollar. I'm not even sure they get 5 cents on the dollar. And that's no slight at Lance. It's just, the fact is they gave up 3 first-round picks to get him, So what are they going to get for him now? If they could turn around and trade him for a 3rd-round pick, to me, that's a good deal for them. But unfortunately, that's very hard to do when you've traded 3 first-rounders to get them. That's egg on your face.
Closer to the deadline with injured quarterbacks, you might get some better value.
Absolutely, and that's that's what they're hoping for. All it takes is one injury, to a key quarterback. I'm not sure this is a good comparison, but Joe Burrow, right? Just injured his calf, right, and he's carted off the field. You come back and he's having calf surgery. He's out, out for the season. And it's like, oh boy, this is a title contender. It's not like they're going to say, well, let's just, cash it in this year. We'll come back next year. No. They're going to say, we need to go out there and get us a quarterback that we think is capable of, of taking us to the Super Bowl. And you look around, boy, no, we're not taking Matthew Stafford's contract. No, we're not taking the Minnesota guy, all the usual suspects. No, we don't want any of them. Trey Lance. Wow, we really liked him a couple of years ago. You telling me we can get him for a 2nd-round pick? Wow, that's something we really got to consider. And that's what the 49ers need, is for, a team to lose their starting quarterback. And it could even, it would probably be even a better fit if it happened for a team that had that kind of style. In other words, if Richardson got injured for the Colts, if Jackson got injured, Ravens are one of these teams. They think they're going places this year. Well, if Lamar Jackson got injured and out for the season, it ain't going anywhere, right? Well, what if we plugged in Lance? He plays the same style. He can run. He can throw the ball. We don't have to change any of our offense. And at that point, then of course Lance's value goes way up, which is exactly what the 49ers want. And now they say, okay, hey, whoa. Yeah, I know I told you 3 months ago that we'll take a 3rd-rounder for him. That's not the case anymore. We want a number 2 this year, and we want a number 3 next year, and or whatever your price is. Now all of a sudden, the 49ers don't look so bad. This other team gets a quarterback, doesn't have to change their offensive plan at all. But these key players play so little in the preseason games that it's hard to imagine somebody's going to get injured. It could very well happen. Heck, it happened to Burrow, while he was throwing practice passes. So it could happen at any time. But in the 49ers case, man, if they have to go into the season with him on the roster, it's that's not ideal, and because his value certainly is not going to get any better, especially when Purdy, gets injured during the season and Darnold comes in as the backup. Like, oh man, I thought you had Lance on your team. Wow, he's that bad that he's not even playing.
Right.
We'll give you a 7th rounder for him. And so, but that's kind of the situation that they're in. Is that they, they're watching the Wire every day. Oh boy, not that you root for anybody to get injured, but they need somebody to get hurt, and that's because like I said. I think Purdy is healthy enough that they think he's going to be able to play the whole season. I think that Darnold has played well enough that they think he could be a nice backup for him. So I think that they are fully prepared to move forward without Lance. And so, so what do? Well, you try to trade him. And like I said, it's impossible. You couldn't trade him today because every team in the league thinks they got the best quarterback. Oh man, this guy's looking great, and Davis Mills. Oh, you see how he's throwing the ball this year. Oh man, so much improved. Yeah, right. And you get into one of those controlled scrimmages, and he throws 3 balls to the other team, and you realize, oh boy, okay, is Lance still available? And so that's what the 49ers have to be hoping for. I think, like I said, the ideal script is that A, Purdy stays healthy, B, Darnold continues to demonstrate that he can be a nice backup, and C, somebody gets injured on another team and comes calling for Lance, where the 49ers can get something more than just giving him away. And I think that's, I think all 3 of those things could possibly happen. Obviously the last one of the 3, the fact that, who's going to possibly want this guy. I think he's good enough to play for a lot of teams. And maybe that's what it's going to take. Maybe he's going to be the guy on opening week of the preseason, that the 49ers, if they're smart, right? You Purdy play. I don't even know if Purdy's going to play the first game. It'd probably be wise that he did, because then we'll play Darnold in the first half, and we'll play Lance in the entire second half against all the third stringers, and see if he can put on a show. Put a for sale sign on him.
Right.
And he, and all of a sudden, wow, this guy is good. You see him run the ball. You see that, he threw that ball 70 yards in the air. And that's their opportunity. I mean, they need the preseason. They need to showcase Lance best they can. And because I don't think anybody out there really knows. Jesus, guy's not playing at all. He must not be very good. He must be hiding something. Oh, you know what? No, we're not hiding anything. Watch him play. Friday night against the Chargers. We're going to play him the whole second half. Get your scout out there, and then maybe he still has it. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know. I'm confident. I'm confident in his ability. He seems to be healthy. He seems to be much more of a, all right, I know I'm not playing at North Dakota State anymore. I kind of know, and I can't just, barrel into these, 280-pound defensive ends trying to get that extra yard. I've learned how to slide. I've learned how to throw the ball a little more touch. I think he's much more polished in terms of an NFL kind of caliber quarterback. So I think it's possible that he could still put on a nice show in the preseason. But, like I said, it's still going to take somebody. Nobody's going to say, oh, sure, we'll trade for Trey Lance and he can be our backup. We'll give you a 7th rounder. I mean, that's the going rate for trading for teams' third-string quarterbacks. And so, no, the 49ers can't take that. But, they need to recoup, give me 25 cents on the dollar. Humor me.
The complete crazy scenario. I think I know the answer to this. But what if Geno Smith goes down? Drew Lock is terrible. It's Seattle. It's in division. Seattle comes to the plate with a first-round pick and maybe a third-round pick. Would that pull the trigger?
Yes. I think that they would have at some point, and when in the Garoppolo situation last year, they were hesitant to trade him to Seattle. But I don't really see, to me, that doesn't really matter anymore. All right. So we trade Lance to Seattle. He becomes a superstar and they finish ahead of us in the division. Big deal. We all make the playoffs anyway, and we got back, the important thing is we got back a first rounder and a number 2. And that's good for us. Who cares what it does for Seattle? We'll deal with them. We're better than them. It's all about improving us. And so I think that would be I don't think they would hesitate, at all. I think all 31 other teams out there are at this point, equally eligible. The first one that calls gets them, and I don't care who you are. And but the problem is it's don't hang by the phone because it ain't ringing for a while.
Right. All right, Dave, we'll let you get out of here. You're going to take a trip to the East Coast. You're going to go to New York, get out of the West Coast for a bit. So what's the best day to get you next week, do you think?
Well, I'll be back by Monday night. So, the rest of the week is wide open.
All right, we'll stick to Tuesday as we are this week. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We'll let Dave Del Grande get out of here. And when I come back, we're going to look at the baseball slate for tonight. All right, we'll be back after this.
This is the Deep End Broadcasting Network.
Hey, does your home have algae or stains on the siding? Is there grime built up on your deck or brick patio? Coastal Pressure Washing Services has a warranty of professional services. From pressure washing to window cleaning to deck and fence staining, as well as dryer vent cleaning, you got it all. Call Coastal Pressure Washing at area code 757-439-9810 or visit our website at coastalpressurewashing.net. Again, call Coastal Pressure Washing at area code 757-439-9810 or visit our website at coastalpressurewashing.net.
Dependable Solutions can provide all voiceover services for your advanced audio production needs. Think of us as an inexpensive option, no matter what the size of the project is. From one-word cameos to full script productions, contact Dependable Solutions at 757-354-5517. Do you want to advertise with Deep End Broadcasting? send us an email at deepend757@yahoo.com. That's deepend757@yahoo.com.
This is the Deep End Broadcasting Network.
It is estimated that 23% of car accidents each year involve a cell phone. That's 1.3 million accidents a year. Reaching for your phone, you are 4 times more likely to crash. Dialing on your phone, 2.8 times more likely to crash. And texting on your phone, you are 23 times more likely to crash. Attentive drivers are safe drivers. Dependable Solutions can provide all voiceover services for your advanced audio production needs. Think of us as an inexpensive option, no matter what the size of the project is. From one-word cameos to full script productions, contact Dependable Solutions at 757-354-5517.
Know your gambling limits. Don't ever bet what you can't cover. Wagering on sports is only fun when you do it the right way. Not every bet will win. When you get on a bad run, know it and avoid trouble. Know your gambling limits.
This is the Deep End Broadcasting Network.
Family owned and operated, CP Shuckers Cafe and Raw Bar specializes in delicious cuisine, refreshing drinks, and a laid back atmosphere. We opened our doors in 1995 and have enjoyed being a place to either relax or celebrate ever since. Whether you are in the mood to indulge in a great meal with your friends and family or watch the game, we promise that our inventive menu, attentive service, and skilled bartenders will have you truly satisfied. Both of our locations have spacious outdoor patios for enjoying the breeze and catching a little sun. Our friendly staff at CP Shuckers will make your next dining experience a pleasant one by delivering personal care. We are open until 2 a.m. Full menu will be served until 10 p.m. and late night limited menu until 1 a.m. For larger parties, please give the location of choice a call. Pacific Avenue, 757-425-8676 or Shore Drive, 757-412-2929. More information at cpshuckers.com. Thank you for your continued support and have a shuckin' good time. And back in the studio live, 5:54 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Deep End Broadcasting Network. I am Stephen Murray, and now also in the studio with me is, voila, there he is. He just popped up on camera, Dave. Nephew Dave pops in to join back in on the fun. Dave, let's get to some baseball in a minute, but what have you been up to? Last we talked to you was on what the puck is going on, which will be back in September,
Right.
to be determined. What's been going on with you? You like the Panthers in the East. Vegas, of course, was in the West. A Vegas dominating final as it ended there, but plenty of drama and good games leading through the playoffs up into the Stanley Cup. Get your one last take there in hockey season, and then let's catch up with whatever you've been doing since. What's up with you?
Not much, Steve. Enjoying the summer, staying busy, working hard. Very excited to be back here on the round robin. So, Steve, let's touch base here real quickly. I had not noticed how banged up the Panthers were in that series. They had a couple different guys playing with, broken bones. One guy was in there trying to play with a broken sternum. I don't even know how you do that.
Right. Yeah, right. I remember that injuries now.
Yeah.
Right there at the end.
And it's so interesting to me to read the injury reports after these long tournaments. If you can get into even the second round, if you draw, tough in the first. But the third and Stanley Cup final, fourth round, these guys, I don't know that any of them are 100%, but I think had the Panthers been a little bit more healthy, Vegas, you got to give them credit. I didn't want to all year, but I will now. Yeah, obviously you have to. They look good. They played hard. And I think it would have been more interesting, Steve, had the Panthers been a little bit more healthy than they were. No excuses. They kind of got drugged through the mud there by the Knights. And I think it was 8-3, some kind of crazy 9-3 final there in the game that they actually won the cup. So kudos to them. I'll give them the credit now. They have completed the task. So again, kudos to the Knights, and we'll see what happens come next. What the puck here shortly.
All right. So good stuff with the hockey, and it's always back. Trust me, when you start week 1 of the NFL, there's preseason hockey already going on. You kind of see it at the bottom of the ticker, and you're like, wait a minute, there we are. We're back. Okay. All right. How about the Commanders? Are you going to be optimistic on them this season?
Absolutely, Steve. It's, a cloud has been lifted. If you're a DC fan, then you know what I'm talking about. It's just a feeling of.
It'd almost be a shame if I didn't ask you that, right? First or second question.
I had a feeling that you might, but Steve, it's just I think there's going to be such a new outlook on things now there in DC. Josh Harris, he comes over and buys the team, with an investment group. And I think they're going to, and it may take a little bit of time, just new personnel and all that. But I think they've come to play, and they're going to try and turn around, what was a great franchise at one point. And they're going to change it from what Danny Boy did, which was just absolutely piss all over it. How he kept that team that long is beyond me, but we're in a new time here, and I think offensively wise, looking pretty good. I feel good about that. Question mark a little bit with Sam Howell, but from what I've seen, he is developing quite nicely. Now, it's not live action against another team, but he's having a good camp. And I think a lot of people are going to end up sleeping on him and the team itself, Steve. So I would think watch out for them. Maybe not quite in the realm of winning the division quite yet. I think fighting for a wild card is certainly a possibility. Defense, healthy Chase Young coming back. I think things are going to kind of start to come together here. So we'll see what they do. Big question mark, Sam Howell, but I feel good about him. And Steve, like I said, I think people are going to end up sleeping on him, and I think it's going to bite you, whether it's gambling or, whatever team that you're a fan of. So we'll see what happens. I'm optimistic for the new season, which will be here again shortly, Steve.
All right, so Sam Howell now backed up by the veteran Jacoby Brissett. You still have Jake Fromm maybe down there third. If something happens to Howell, maybe Fromm is that little flash in the pan that, sometimes that third stringer does come out.
I think he certainly could
Brock Purdy, right?
Right.
And be very successful. You still have in the mix Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson, Chris Rodriguez Jr. What might he bring to this team? Let's see. Backing
they picked up
Curtis Samuel
Pringle.
still. Yep. Okay. Yep. You have McLaurin, Dotson. You have Pringle.
He's got options.
You have Logan Thomas still if he can stay healthy. And then on the defensive side, what can Chase Young do? I guess will be a big question mark. Can he rebound from the season that was a little bit lackluster after his rookie campaign, et cetera, et cetera. Now he's kind of getting older. He should be a veteran player. And Dave, so I guess, what do you see there? You see decent talent? You have something to work with, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the talent is there. And like I said, Sam Howell.
Montez Sweat is great. He's a good player. Yep.
A defense should not be an issue this year in my book. It's going to be what can the offense do, with the young quarterback. And I really think that's what it all comes down to, Steve, is can he take the team and lead them and what are his abilities going to show? And so we'll see. He's got a talented backfield, and he's got more than enough options to throw to. So he's got, I feel like, the tools to be good and for this team to be good. But again, Steve, we'll see, what comes of it come week 1.
And what else here? Okay, also you got your own studio now.
Yes.
So you're going to be able to start tuning in or linking in, even live, basically live. You'll be able to pipe right into the studio from where you are at in that moment of time, which will be your little studio at your lovely abode on the beautiful coastline of Norfolk, Virginia. So that'll be cool. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, really excited
we'll experiment
for that.
with all that down the road. Okay, cool. Let's see what else here. Anything else we need to catch up on? Anything you need to vent about from the sports spring season so far, or summer baseball? Anything else on your
Steve,
mind?
I mean,
we can start with your Orioles right off the bat.
I'm super pleased. I have really nothing to complain about other than a couple golfers letting me down and a couple parlays. But that's golf. I mean, that's difficult to gamble on sometimes. So
that's par for the course, Dave.
That's par for the course, Steve. And maybe that's my own fault. But other than that, I mean, the O's are looking fantastic. Very good win season.
The first sound effect back.
The season series win against the Yankees on Sunday Night Baseball. If you watch that, I mean, they look very good in that. Pitching's still a little bit suspect. I think that's going to be the problem moving towards the postseason. We like to think that we're going to get there, but you never know. You start thinking about it too early, and the wheels fall off, and you're outside in looking, in the wild card. So let's not get there quite yet. I feel good about it, but we're not there yet. But should they get into the postseason, Steve, I think the pitching is going to be the one thing that's going to kind of, hinder them. And they're not a finished product yet either, Steve. They have more prospects there in Norfolk and coming up through AAA and all that. So I think,
the Mets should want to trade Verlander to them, to be honest.
Well,
and get some of those Tides prospects. I would love to see that personally myself, as I think the Mets need to revamp the farm completely. Well, and Verlander, let's face it, the Mets are kind of in a let's build for the future mode. Right. Verlander's going to give you another year or two, and he's a great locker room guy. But man, he could really help out the Orioles, I think. And the Mets could probably get a couple decent little pieces in return.
Well, Steve, there was some talk about that, but I saw earlier. I don't know if it was earlier today or yesterday. It looks like Verlander is on his way to Houston.
Wow, yeah, reunited back with the Astros. Honestly, Dave, I've been in the studio prepping. I really am out of the loop on the complete headlines here.
I don't know, is that deal finalized yet, but I think that's what's going to end up happening. I was actually along the same thought of you, Steve. I would have liked to see them go after Verlander, a proven pitcher.
Yep, he's gone. They traded him.
Yep, he's gone to Houston. So that would have been nice. But
yeah, I was talking with Bill Grande beforehand. Yeah, so there you go. Let's see. In your headlines, Verlander gets traded to the Mets. Anything else crazy going on?
The O's did pick up Flaherty, though, from the Cardinals, so they are trying to make a move to a more established pitcher.
The Phillies get Lorenzen from Detroit.
Right.
Which he's been decent. All right. And Aaron Rodgers, he says he'll be around for a while. How about that?
We'll see.
Okay. We like to pick some games. We have baseball to work with. That's the menu. That's the slate. Let's take a look at this. I've been well in tune to baseball. I've been watching my Mets still every night, somehow ridiculously. Trust me, they are one bad baseball team, Dave. It is not pretty to watch the Mets play. I mean, it's very boring too. I'll tell you that. There's been no drama in any of their games. Usually it's about 2 or 3 stupid things that cashes them in at the end of the day. And that's just that. But your favorites right now to win the World Series are the Braves, 3-1, Dodgers plus 450, Tampa Bay plus 650, the Astros now with Verlander 7-1, the Rangers 8-1, Orioles, we talked about them 13-1, Blue Jays 17-1, Phillies 22-1, and then you start to drop off to teams like the Twins and Giants around 30-1, 35-1 now. Padres and Yankees, Brewers even all the way down to 40-1. So maybe no respect for the Brewers at all. Diamondbacks slipping 50-1, Red Sox 55-1. Still got the Reds. I mean, it's wide open, Dave. There's some
It
teams
really is.
really still getting some good numbers here. Reds 60-1. League winners wise, Orioles plus 650 to win the American League. I think that's still a nice price. I like their pitching. Toronto getting a lot of respect as always, but man, the Orioles do handle them well, plus 900. Let's see other division stuff. As I'm just perusing to see if anything really jumps out.
I have the Reds in the Central, Steve.
I actually have them at like 17-1 at one point, Dave. And that parlay is actually live to cash because of that pick. But I need the Diamondbacks really to pick up the slack. I have them with the Orioles. Anyway, the three of those guys together would pay nicely. The fourth in that was the Mets when they were about eight or nine games down. And they've free-falled from that. So the other three could be a helping cause there. So lots of good future stuff. But let's go ahead and look at the games for tonight. As I said, well in tune here. Phillies at Marlins. Sandy Alcantara, Rangers, Suarez. The Marlins a favorite at minus 138 right now, over under 7.5. I don't like Rangers, Suarez, and Alcantara is hit or miss. Now, where Suarez has been a good pitcher for the most part, I still don't trust him. In Alcantara, I think he's probably the one pitcher who's burned me the most over the last few years when I'm, think I might get him to fall flat on his face. He doesn't. So I'll try to stay away from his games at this point of my career. So I'll pass on this game. But do you like anything here?
Not really, Steve. If I had to do anything, I would probably side here with the Marlins. But I do agree with you there on Alcantara. He's been up and down, hot and cold all season. So, no, Steve, this is really a no play for me. But I think if you want to do something, I don't know, maybe take the Marlins. I think they're a little bit better of a team.
The Brewers have Peralta on the mound at the Washington Nationals with Josiah Gray. Josiah Gray has been a decent pitcher for the Nationals. Actually, he's been one of the bright spots on a team who actually, I think, is seeing their farm pay dividends from some of their big player trades. They've seemed to have a decent formula of rebuilding. They were picked to be a doormat, but they play competitively, and I just don't think they have the bullpen to carry them at the end of the day. That's for sure. But they have some nice pieces, the Nationals. So I'll lay off this since Josiah Gray has been pitching good. The Brewers really can't hit, to be honest. They are a power or nothing team. When your team averages in the lower 200s, one of the worst hitting teams in the league, I just can't really get behind you at this point. I played that dance with the Brewers, so no play for me on this one either. You like that, Dave? Anything there?
Steve, I'm actually going to take a shot here.
You can take a shot on the Nationals.
I'm going to do the Nationals on the money line. It's only plus 136, but it's plus money, and like you said, they do play competitive. And that's the one thing that's, it's the Nationals, they're going to be bottom of the barrel. But, I mean, they bring the effort. So at least there's that. And maybe they come through with some effort this evening. I'll take a shot on them, Steve.
If you take the Nationals minus 3.5, you can get paid plus 680. Dave, if you think they can win by 4. And it's interesting because you also have the winning margin bet to win by 4 plus more runs is plus 650, but that's just the same bet, minus 3.5, or to score 4 plus runs is the same bet. So be wary of the language. Usually the win by 4 runs or more actually pays more than the alt runs, but in this case, the alt runs is paying more than the win margin. If any of that makes sense out there to you. As you deep dive on the menu here for what's, that's part of the show too, Dave, is a learning experience. Some of the other stuff you can play here, but I'll pass on this game. Nationals a fun little team, kind of. All right, Tampa Bay is at the Yankees. We have Eflin and Rodon, Carlos Rodon coming back, pitching okay in his last outing. Over-under is 8. I could maybe see with Aaron Judge back, high scoring barrage of runs potentially. 8's pretty cheap for these teams. If Tampa Bay can get hot with the bats, which I feel like they've been heating up a little bit now after kind of being dormant, they're getting hot again. The Yankees have been miserable here in the last 10 days, but if their offense can find itself at home with Judge back in the lineup, then maybe they can put some runs. So maybe an overplay here, Dave. Anything on that?
Steve, that's probably the best. I got 8.5 here at -102. I don't know. I think you bump it up a little bit to get a plus number out of it. And it's all going to come down to, when the Yankees get healthy, what can they do? Because they are missing some guys. And if they can get healthy and maybe make a run, then it's possible for them to make some noise. But at this point, Steve, it hasn't been going very well for them. So I think you take a over, I don't know, maybe like an 11.5, somewhere in that neighborhood, Steve. So.
All right. In Pittsburgh, Oviedo and Manning are the pitchers. Manning, the pitcher for the Tigers, a slight favorite for the Pirates. Over-under is 9. But both of these teams have issues hitting the ball, too. Neither one of these pitchers will blow you out of the park. 3-2 for Manning, 4-11 for Oviedo, 4.60 ERA, 4.32 for Manning. So this is just a situation where I'll have, two teams heading in the wrong direction. I'll just avoid it altogether. So no play there, Dave. You going to grab anything with that?
Yeah, no.
All right. Also, 7 o'clock. These are all 7 o'clock games. Starting in about 30 minutes as we are live on the Deep End Broadcasting Network, the round robin drive time. If you're out there driving around, tuning in, that's what you should be doing. That's the design for this show. As you navigate your way through traffic, you can tune us in. Available on deepend757.com is our host website. Of course, we are our own YouTube channel, Deep End Broadcasting. Just go to the website, deepend757.com. Find everything there. Let's see here. More 7 o'clock games. Yeah, back. All right, good one. I'm going to take Baltimore, Dave, to beat Toronto again, only because they own them in every regard.
Right.
And I'm impressed by the Orioles. Our column A, a little bit of an issue last night on the bullpen. But I could see the Orioles winning this game, and I could actually see some runs maybe by the Blue Jays. But now Bichette was hurt. Let's see if he's even in the lineup.
Saw that, last night.
I'm not sure exactly what it was. He? I didn't see it. Was he limping off the field or anything?
I
had the game on, but I missed that part.
He was coming around first, and I think he was thinking about going to second, and the first base coach told him to hold up. So he tried to make a quick stop, and I think it was something in his knee or his ankle. I'm not quite sure what it was, but he was definitely leaving the field and not in any comfort, that's for sure.
Yeah, I got the old unavailable lineup right now as well. So we'll assume no Bichette just by that factor. I don't know why the Blue Jays would be a favorite in this scenario, Dave. So,
no.
Orioles, if you're out there playing tonight, folks, the Orioles, and maybe even an over combo if you want to do that.
I'm going over in this game, I think, Steve.
This has every bit of 10-5 written all over it. Kyle Bradish, the pitcher, though, for the Orioles, 3.29 ERA and 6-6 on the season. It's a little bit of bad luck record-wise without low ERA. Okay. Spencer Strider is on the mound for the Braves against Sandoval for the Angels. Spencer Strider has had his struggles so far on the season, but he seems to be pitching much better of late. And that being said, he still is 11-3 with a 3.73 ERA, whipped it all the way down to 1.09. Sandoval 6-7, 4.13. So he's your average run-of-the-mill, average pitch major league pitcher. The Braves a heavy favorite minus 250, over under 9. Dave, I would just look for some kind of plus money in the Braves on a blowout if I were to play this. How about you?
Well, Steve, there is something to say.
The Braves do score a lot of runs.
They do. They are the top of the league. But I think you watch out for the Angels because, they kept Ohtani when they could have traded him. And I think
they've gained some pop. This could definitely be an over game. Strider has given up some runs.
And I can't remember if they've added some pieces or whatnot, but they're only, I believe, 3 games back out of a wild card spot. So they're kind of fighting for their life right now to stay, in the mix. So maybe some kind of sneaky play there. The Braves at home, you never really want to bet against that, but just given that little bit of information we know with the Angels, I wouldn't count them all the way out. So maybe an over here as well. But plus 205 on the Angels, I would certainly think about it. I ain't saying doing it, but I would definitely think about it.
And if you wanted to get exotic on your plays on that one, just because they're getting a good price and you're kind of feeding into the dog here, Dave, let's see our little game. Angels by 4 runs or more is plus 750, or Angels minus 3.5, which is the same bet, is plus 750. So, see, they're listening. FanDuel has been listening, and they went ahead and fixed that. Both even odds. That's the first time I've seen that actually be the same thing. So, kind of cool. Thank you, FanDuel, for tuning in. Actually, my one rep, Chelsea, does tune in from time to time. So maybe that's her getting on the red phone behind the scenes.
Note.
Yeah. They've taken note. Lopez, the pitcher for the Twins, against the pitcher. I have no problem betting against Miles Michaelis for the St. Louis Cardinals. 8.5 is the over here. I don't see how this game, even with the Twins with their power or bust numbers, and the Cardinals just going dormant when they want. But I don't know. Either team could explode, and over 8.5 in St. Louis, I think, is a very achievable number, considering the pitching here for sure. So I'll take a chance on the Twins and the Cardinals over 8.5, Dave, or I would at least recommend it.
I got 8.5.
I'm not saying I'm not going to do any of these, to be honest. But over Twins and Cardinals would be something I would look at.
Yeah, Steve, I'm going to stay away from it myself, but it is a plus number at the over 8.5. So if you're feeling, some kind of way about that, you can get to 9 there in St. Louis. Then I think you take the plus money out of that, Steve.
All right, Steele has been a good pitcher for the Cubs. He is the pitcher tonight listed, and his ERA sits down to 2.87, a 1.12 whip for Steele, Steeel, against Lively for the Reds. Lively, 3.76, 4-6 on the year. He hasn't been the greatest pitcher himself. So a distinct advantage for the Cubs in the starting pitching matchup here, minus 168 right now for the money line. 8.5 is the over-under. The one thing, though, I will say, and Steele has been good, not as good maybe lately, although he does have some nice performances. I think he had one bad one and rebounded well, and maybe a semi-bad one and then rebounded well. So he's shown the capability just not to go into the tank, even in adversity, I will say. But the Reds, man, they're such a feast or famine team. I feel like they can get hot with the bats and really put on a fun show, or they can just kind of lay an egg on you too at the same time. Cubs playing really good too, as well lately, I should say. I would just take a chance that both of these bats get going, even against Steele, and maybe take a look at the over here at Wrigley Field, where they should be able to light up the night sky with home run balls if both of these teams can get hot. Anything here, Dave?
Steve, I actually am surprised here how much Cincinnati, you're getting a plus 140 number on the money line for them, which Chicago has been playing much better. I think you could have counted them out a while ago, which is not the case now. So with them, picking up some momentum there, I don't know, Steve. The Reds and what they've been doing.
Extra innings last night, right? And lots of decent amount of runs scored. So the bullpens maybe a little bit of taxed too. That might play something into thinking about the over here. But yeah, if they make the pitcher steal work, Dave, then get the pitch count up early, then I can definitely see how the Reds could be a play here for sure. All right, so one team I would look at home tonight, without a doubt, is the Rangers against the White Sox team, who is somewhat thrown in the towel for the rest of the year. They've traded away their pieces. They're going to go into the tank a little bit. So the Rangers with Haney at home. Let's see what we have for the matchups here. Williams is the pitcher for. I'm sorry, that's the wrong game. That is Cleveland. Same state, wrong game. Okay. Schultens. I don't know much about him. 3.32 ERA. He's just 1-3 on the year. He just has 38 innings pitched. He is a right-hander. So we'll have to learn about him tonight. Haney's 7-6, 4.62 ERA. So he hasn't been the best himself. But I could see the Rangers winning this in a parlayed scenario of going Rangers in the over. Maybe if you do something extreme, if you're trying to have fun and really, throw the gamble and the dart out there, Dave, and try to get a nice, $10 hit to win like $500 or something like that on 3 teams, then maybe the Rangers at -2.5 over 10.5, which is a 7-4 ball game at +450 is a good option there. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Steve, I would definitely take a stab at that. One thing I was looking at, the Rangers over 5.5 total runs. I kind of like that as well.
Straight, I could see that for sure. Because here's the problem: if a team's going to let you down not scoring the runs, then it is going to be the White Sox for sure. I think that I don't know this White Sox pitcher. Maybe this kid comes out and throws gasoline too. So a little bit of caution to the wind here, but he's up here playing probably because the White Sox are tanking. Right?
Exactly.
Okay. All right. The Astros and Guardians. Astros are a decent favorite over the Guardians at home, -190, +160 on the comeback. This is the game with, let's see, what's his name here? Get me back to the main screen.
Got the Valdez for the Houston.
Yeah. Valdez, 3.29, 8-7 overall against, again, a pitcher who just has 37 innings pitched. In Williams, 1-2 for the year, 3.35. I don't know much about Williams. Framber Valdez has been a little bit of he's better lately, but he's shown a little bit of chink at the armor at times, but 3.29 is good. Cleveland did well last night down there in Houston. I think they ended up winning that game. Did I go to bed? I think I saw that they won. Let me just clarify that. No, Astros came back to win 7-3, actually. So I did kind of like that Astros in the over. But Cleveland held that lead for a good part of the game until that happened, and then they fell apart. Their bats just are quiet, too, at times. Cleveland can't I think they lack power. They lack average. Houston still, they're stocked down in my mind a little bit overall, too. So I think I'll no play this one, but you like anything here?
Not really. I think, obviously Houston is the much stronger team. So maybe you find something with them, a run total or something like that if you really want to play it, Steve. But I don't really have much that interests me in this one.
Quintana for the Mets, at Zinke for the Zach Greinke, I should say, for the Royals. Zach Greinke and Quintana for the Mets. The Mets a favorite on the road. I'm not sure why. I'll stay away from this. Dave?
They are favored.
Yeah,
they are favored.
I have nothing more to say about that game.
The Royals +130 on the money line.
The Royals are a bad team. They are legitimately
So do you think about maybe
as bad as Oakland? Oakland's not as bad now, I don't think, right?
No, they're not,
all right,
yeah.
Oakland has 30 wins. Kansas City has 32 wins. You know, but shoot, the Mets just with 50 wins, 5 games under 500, trailing the Braves by 17 and a half.
Do you think maybe about a underplay here, Steve? Something a little different? If these teams really struggle?
Greinke has had some bad outings, but he's had some good ones too. And when he is on, he does hold the other team down. Quintana, the jury's still out on him. He had a decent year last year. He's popped around from the Pirates to the Cardinals and now to the Mets, but injured most of this year. So the jury's still out a little bit. But I could see that against the Royals team, who offensively is very challenged, Quintana having success. And yeah, maybe over 9.5 would be a good way to look, Dave. I'm not an under.
I'm not usually either because it blows up in my face.
There's been a lot of high scoring games this year too.
Yeah.
People, if you're just kind of trying to figure out what's happening in baseball, maybe not so much in the All-Star break. And I feel like this time of the year scoring is down all the time anyway, but there have been some really big high scoring games in baseball. I'm going to tell you a lot more than last year. That's for sure. You definitely have 2 games a night that usually get over 12 or 13 runs. And a lot of times you get about 4 of those and maybe another 3 over 10 runs. So there have been some high scoring nights in Major League Baseball. So wary of the over under myself. Maybe an under here, though. 12.5, the over under in Coors Field with the Padres and the Rockies. Lambert, the pitcher. For Colorado, Avila, the pitcher for the Padres. I think Avila, when I watched him the last time, I think he did okay. I do remember he's just freshly back. Well, not back up to the majors. He's made his major league debut, I think. Yeah, he's 0-0. He allowed 0 runs and 5 innings pitched in his major league debut. So Avila, nice stuff in his first start for the Padres. Lambert 2-1, 4.76 ERA. Then maybe that's not even so bad for a Rocky staff in Coors Field, to be honest, with these high scoring games. But 12.5 here, maybe an underplay there, Dave, because the Padres bats can go silent as well. What do you think?
Under 9.5 at plus 210. I'm going to do something with it.
Oh yeah. There we go. That's a little fun one. Yeah. You got plenty of room.
That's a good number. I feel like for it's the Rockies. They're not very good either.
Now, of course, it could be 7-7 at the end of the second inning with these two.
And it probably will be now that I'm playing an under because, like I said, it absolutely explodes in my face every time I do an under. So probably what will happen here. But with that number there in Colorado, I'm gonna take a chance on it. I think it's achievable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, plus 196 under 10.5, not a bad number either. Maybe. Yeah, but I like your under 9.5, Dave, because of a 4-4. A team wins 5-4. That's it.
Right.
As opposed to a 10.5, 5-5, you're in trouble.
Right.
5-5 means it's 11. You lose. Unless it's rain out.
Now, are the Rockies, maybe the Padres kind of hurt that cause, but are the Rockies themselves how many runs are they really going to score?
Very offensive challenge team this year. Not very good at all. They, in fact, they've traded away some of their better players, so they really might be struggling to put up runs. Honestly, the Padres on to win on the alt line, honestly, is the way you might want to look at this. But again, their bats go silent, so your total is good there, but only plus 164 for minus 3.5. I think you take the better price with the under, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, flat even up, Red Sox and Mariners. That's an even game, minus 108 each side. Over under is 8. Bello against Miller, or Bayo, I think is how they say his name. Every time I see it, I say Bello, but it's Bayo. He is not bad, 3.66 on the ERA, 7-6 on the year. 7-3 though for Miller 3.96 for Seattle. So you would think this would be a decent pitching matchup, but at 8 runs, and the Red Sox, who can get hot at any time with their bats, I think that's somewhat of a cheap number. Seattle should be able to get up some runs at home too, I would think. So I would look at an over here, maybe, Dave.
Okay.
How about that?
Yeah, I'd like it.
You like that? Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, it's the Sox. They're not out of it either. So
No, they're in your
still,
Orioles division. You get a good look at them all the time.
So yeah, they're still giving the effort. So maybe that is the way to go about it, Steve. I would probably go again into the neighborhood of 10.5, 11.5. Somewhere around there, I think.
Zach Gallen for the Diamondbacks. Tough outing last time for Gallen as he was chased with the loss in his game against Seattle, but now he is at the Giants. Cobb, the pitcher for the Giants, he has been really good, 6-2 overall for him, 2.97 ERA, 11.05 for the Diamondbacks. Gallen 3.36 on his ERA. Over-under is just down at 7.5. I think this is an under game for sure, but I'll stay away from it overall. You like anything here?
Well, the number set where it is, Steve, kind of makes me agree with you on the under here. But I'm playing an under already, so I'm not going to push. I'm not going to push my luck here, Steve.
This is the classic game where you play under 3.5 at even money for the first 5 innings.
Right. Yep.
That way you get both starting pitchers for the most part, and then if you get blown away with the over/unders because you got bad beat late.
Right, absolutely, Steve. Yeah, I think something like you said with the 5 innings might be a way to go about this game. 2 teams that I'm not exactly sure about, so that's going to be nothing for me either.
All right, last game on the slate tonight, Dodgers and the Athletics. Dodgers a heavy favorite, -330. Lance Lynn gets the start coming over from the White Sox for the Dodgers. Waldchuk is the pitcher for Oakland. He's not a very good pitcher. I've seen him pitch for sure. Let's see. I've probably seen way more A's games than I want to give myself credit for, Dave. Waldchuk, 6.38 on his ERA, 2-6 on the season. Lance Lynn, he'll get fresh numbers coming over from the American League to the National League, but his ERA was ballooned up to 6.47 before the switch over. But like I said, a fresh start for him. It's obviously the Dodgers, but it's such a big price, right? And Lance Lynn's such a gas can, you have to stay away.
Dodgers are nothing, but you're really not. I don't think you'll find anything that you really like. You know what I mean? You're going to have to go with something ridiculous to kind of get a good number. Well, hey, who knows? Maybe they can do it against the A's, but Steve, I don't really find anything there that would make me want to play it.
All right, that's Major League Baseball for tonight. I think my best picks would be I would take at an over with Tampa Bay, New York. I would look for an over in Baltimore and Toronto as well. I think the Braves can have success at home against the Angels. Dave says maybe take the Angels. I could see an over scenario with the Twins and the Cardinals. The numbers cheap. Same thing with Cincinnati and Chicago. Over-unders low tonight. There's a lot of low over-unders. So some of these lower scoring games get respect on the odds. But, man, if they blow up these pitchers, I mean, it's where you want to get some nice payouts. So, some of these I think you can take a shot at. We'll see how it does tomorrow. Anything else on the slate for best bets for me? I really like the Rangers at home. They can wipe out the White Sox, I'm convinced, as long as the new guy for the White Sox, newer guy, doesn't throw a no-hitter, which maybe that's what he'll do.
Right.
Dave, any good picks for you?
Yeah, Steve, I'm going to go with the Nationals this evening, over 11.5 in the O's Blue Jays game. I'd look at this. I did it twice, Steve. Under 9.5 in the Mets game, under 9.5 in the Padres game.
Wow. Okay.
Didn't even catch myself, and there we go. That's going to explode.
All right. What is a $5 bet payout on that? Do you have that payout?
It would be about $370.
That's pretty good. Yeah. Nice shot. Okay. So a couple unders there and an extreme under. Yeah, that's a big number, 12.5. I don't get. It's only because of course field.
Right.
I'm thinking, I don't know. But yeah, we'll look at some overs. And you know what? Orioles and Rangers, if you just want to do a straight up 2-teamer, I think that's a great one
Oh yeah.
for tonight as well. Maybe the Blue Jays can break the hex that they have against
We
the
sure
Orioles.
hope not, Steve. Don't
But-
talk that way over there.
but they haven't proven they can do that yet. I just think the Orioles have a deeper lineup. Like, you know, they just like they're
right.
top to bottom, they have players. Okay. That'll be it for today. Longer show. We'll keep it to 2 hours, 4 to 6 here in the future, unless Dave Del Grande gets on Tuesdays and we have to recap everything a million times. So we'll try to keep things to the 2 hours, but with the new show back tonight, not afraid to go over the time limit at all. Any final takes, Dave, before we get on out of here?
No, Steve. Well, yeah, actually one. It's nice to have the round robin back. And ready for another season, and especially football season when we dive into that. You know how much fun we like to have here in the studio.
Yeah, issue free too. It seems like with the new plugins and everything, and we'll get
to
your
try out
studio
the home
going.
studio,
And we're gonna have a lot of announcements when they become all official.
right?
Soon, traveling, all kinds of stuff.
We're gonna have
So
some
we'll get
fun
into
this
that.
year. We've got some
Things
good
will pop
ideas.
up left and right. We'll be able to go over. Let's see, Nick Athon will be on tomorrow from the Chiefs Blitz. So we'll get into some Kansas City Chiefs stuff. I think Thursday we'll do more baseball tomorrow. Look at some more NFL, and then also college football. We want to start looking at that.
Absolutely.
We'll get the Ant-Man in here, I think, on Thursday. We'll grab him in studio. We'll get his NASCAR thoughts on the weekend as well. We need NASCAR to talk some racing. Their very last segment, probably. So look forward to some fun stuff there. All right, Dave, we'll go ahead and get on out of here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the Round Robin, broadcasting live from Virginia Beach, Virginia, the United States of America. Dave, good luck on your bets.
Thanks, sir.
First pitch in the very first game, Phillies and Marlins, goes off right now. Good luck on your baseball.